Okay, Rick, you should be able to share,
Yes.
and I'm gonna keep an eye on just participants and admit anybody who shows up.
Okay.
Okay?
See if I can get the chat. All right. As most of you probably know, my name's Rick Hale. Been a tournament director for multiple years now. I figured first I'll kind of just run through those if you didn't see all the slides. Go through the event schedule section, and then where the slides turn into pictures of the scheduling tool that I've been using forever. I'll pull that actually up and kind of walk through those the inputs and stuff and see how it what you put in and what you get out. Um, so the first things we need to know when we want to do our schedule, what's the minimum that we have to have? So practice match, then the 3 official matches and 1 judging session. Each robot game match is 2.5 minutes. That's the actual game play time. And then you also need to account for, well, the team needs to show up, kind of get all their stuff on the table and ready to go. And then after the match is done, the referee needs to score it and confirm with the team. So there are some extra time periods on either side of that 2.5 minutes to be accounted for when you're doing the schedule. And then the judging session, the 30 minutes is the time that the team is in with the judges. And then you'll want some time, you need some time for your judges to finish all their notes that they collected in their head while the teams were presenting, to write those down before the next team comes in, because they're going to be seeing probably about 5 teams. And if you have them back to back, they're not going to remember who said what was special about each team. So 15 minutes is probably the minimum that you want to put in there for. And then, yeah, the challenge of making the schedule is wrapping that all into as short as possible time that you can, but also have everybody have a fun day. Uh, Ideally, for each individual team, you kind of want to let them have as much time as possible in between their events. Especially so, for example, like robot matches, if their robot didn't perform very well or something broke, it's ideal for them to have at least a little bit of time to kind of troubleshoot that and get ready for their next match. Um, but sometimes, depending on the number of teams at a match, or if they drop it, that's a very critical bad thing. And that we're very this off topic, but one of the things that I say during the coaches meeting in the morning is to have the coaches tell their teams to, I know they're excited, but don't run around, especially entering doors and stuff, because we don't want them dropping their robot or 2 teams colliding and dropping robots. Because there won't be that much time to rebuild. Um, see, talk about gaps later. Let's see, schedule constraints. Yeah, so the number, I mean, there's only so many hours in a day. And of those hours in the day, there's only so many hours that your volunteers and teams and coaches want to be at your event. So the number of teams, you have to get them through all those sessions. But depending on how my robot game table is in the judging pods, you'll make that day either really long or really short. So by playing with the resources that you have available to you, that's how you can put all the schedule together. And lastly, the judges need to deliberate, but they need all the inputs from the judging sessions and the robot games before they can start that. So you don't want your scheduled portions to end at like 3 o'clock thinking that you're done, because your judges are going to need an hour and a half at least to finish what they need, and then you can do your closing ceremonies. Um, it's also a good idea to possibly plan some type of activity or something to keep the teams engaged during that time so that they're not finding their own things to do. Let's put it that way. So yeah, when I started, I was provided a Excel macro-based tool that helps you. It takes some inputs and then it spits out a schedule. I really enjoyed using that, and I've been basically using it every time. Nice thing is if you run a similar tournament year to year, you can basically just copy paste that, change your team name and numbers, and you've got your schedule ready to go, assuming your um, number of teams at your tournament is like the same, or it allows you to very easily tweak. Um, and then we'll go through each one of these tabs later, but it provides all the information in textual form so that you can make either just print it right out of the tool to provide schedules, or you can take that and put it into some other file and make a printout. Any questions so far? And
You might get into this. Do you always have a practice robot round at your qualifiers?
at the qualifiers, I do, yes. At state, we didn't until I think last year was the first time that we brought it to state. But
You up the number of tables, yeah.
at the qualifiers, since it's the first time for a lot of people, it's better to do. And I found also that it allows um, even just from later on in the day, having a practice round. Um, and I'll explain a little bit later, but having the times of that a little more loose allows your teams to learn how this event is working. It allows your like referees and your queuing team to learn how it's working. And that way, when we actually go to the four score, those three official matches, everybody's kind of dialed in and ready to go because they've all kind of got practice. Even your head ref, if it's they can work with their referees and get everybody level set and troubleshoot any issues that they're finding. All right. So there's an instructions tab that kind of explains what's in the purpose of the tool and how to use it. The next tab is basically where you put your team information. The only ones that are really important are columns A and B. That's really what I always fill in, and then I just do a incrementing number in pit number. But usually I assign my pits outside of the schedule tool, because sometimes you'll have teams with numbers that are not necessarily next to each other because they were registered at different times, but they might be coming from the same school and have the same coach. So I try to group those together at the same table area. So this is, as it says, a scheduled input sheet. So this is all the information. The green boxes are where you put in information related to your schedule that you want. You don't have to. I like to just kind of see it as a visual, but I put in registration time, which is basically as like the teams are arriving. and checking in and getting all set up. And then I put in the coaches meeting just to keep track of that for myself. And then a lunch period. Just a backup. So these are breaks that occur across the entire tournament. So anytime that you put in here will just be a hard stop for everything that's going on. And then there's sections for practice rounds, official rounds, and judging sessions where you can also put in breaks, but it will only affect that that round. So you could put a break in your practice rounds, but have your judging sessions all keep going. For qualifiers, I like putting in a lunchtime because our volunteers have to eat. So it's easy just to have a all stop and all the volunteers can eat at one time. And then it also kind of makes it easier on the teams to know that they have a defined lunch break where nothing is going to be happening. I usually try like 45 minutes to an hour, but it depends on what you're trying to do and how everything's working out for that day. And plus it allows buffer where if you're getting behind in the robot matches before lunch, you can kind of eat into lunch and get back on time so that your timing schedule works for the rest of the day. Let's see. Team travel time, time between events. This is like I was saying earlier, it's nice to have some time in there so that the teams aren't doing stuff back to back to back. If you're having trouble getting this to converge to a solution, I recommend putting that back down to like 1 or even 0. Hopefully it'll run, you can get a schedule. And then let's see, let's show on this graphical. Once it gets to run, you can actually see like what the schedule looks like. And then you can start going back to the inputs and dialing back and seeing if I do this, maybe I'll make it work. Scheduling method, I always set that to just 1. It's random assignments. Teams competing, that's what you have your event set up for. Max number of attempts, that's basically just the Excel tool itself. It'll iterate a couple times. It could run forever, or if you put it into 5, you'll stop after a time. And then, sorry. I don't know. I don't touch that. All right, so practice rounds. I've got everything set in here kind of as a base default, even though I have 30 teams. I've got a set where, say we only had one set of full tables. Like I said, 2.5 minutes for a round. I push that up to 4 to allow for time with the referees. And then have 4 minutes set to allow time for that team to finish, come off the table, and then your next team to come and get set up on the table. And then I just have that repeated for official rounds and judging. I have 2 rooms with a 30-minute in-room and that 15-minute gap. So if we run this by clicking the generate schedule, it'll take a few seconds. Tell you that it was successful. Or if it wasn't, it'll say it was unsuccessful. And then what I like doing is looking here at the graphical schedule. So as you can see, that registration and coaches meeting and lunch show up as big gray boxes and extend across the entire event. Don't know why, but I think it's something with Excel. That text is white. But then it has kind of columns for your official rounds with your practice rounds and then your judging sessions. It's got a start. It's got the what's it doing? Oh, this text. So it tells you your table. So in the settings, you can define the names of your tables. Usually we go with colors. So right now I've got it set for red 1 and red 2, and then it gives you the start time. And down below, it provides a little box with the team number who will be playing on that table at the time. And then similar, same for the judging session, but since that's 30 minutes, it's a larger box. And then you can see that gap of 4 minutes buffer in between. I didn't do a good job. I missed setting this should really start at the end here, but if we only had one table and 2 judging rooms, our judging would last until 9:15 at night. So I don't think anybody wants to be there until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So let's go back and reconfigure some things to make this a little bit easier for us all. So what if we did go to, this was one of my events last year, so I'm just going to go right to what I actually had it set for. Let's do three full tables, just one match running at a time. For example, it's, oh wait, no, did we do? This is, you could have 2 tables. Yeah, last year at state, we had 4 tables set up. So we would run 2 tables at the same time. And then while those were finishing up doing their scoring, the other 2 tables would start running. So if I wanted to do that, I would set this as a 2. I think it would work with 3. It might not work with 3, but anyway, I always just leave that as 1 for qualifiers. Just to be clear, 1 full tables mean 1 pair of, or just 1. Yes, in this case, the full tables are the pair. So 2 wooden tables sitting next to each other equals one full table. Let's see, practice rounds, match. Set that 4. And I did have this as 0. Now we'll see once I run this why, and I'll explain later why I have 0 for the buffer time. 3. Judging. So I think the rule of thumb I received from Nancy is you want your judges to see about 5 teams. So take your total number of teams and divide that by 5. In this case, we got 6 or 30, so that's 6 rooms. And then that 30 and 15 doesn't change. So let's run this. Oh, here's the message where it fails. We can try retrying it, and sometimes just retrying it will make it work. Sometimes it won't converge at all, and then you have to go and play with it and try to get it to work. But it's doing some random stuff in the background, trying to assign teams and fit them into the slots. All right, so we've got a schedule that works. You can see it went from just a single column to three columns of teams, one column for each table. And then now we have 6 columns over here for your judging rooms. The part where I had that 0 set for buffer time is because since now we have 3 tables going, you can start it around, have it run, and as soon as that finishes, you can basically move over to the next table. Because this table will have plenty of time for those 2 referees to finish up scoring with the teams before the next set of 2 teams are coming. This makes it a little harder on your, if you have only one MC, because they have to switch instantly to the next table. So I would recommend having like at least 2 in that case. Might be a little challenging on the head referee as well, because they need to bounce back as well. But the main people, the referees, really having to work with the teams. They have plenty of time before that next set of teams are coming up. So that's why I set that to 0, because otherwise it just stretches this out a bit longer. And then this gap here, I don't think I showed that. So at the beginning of each one of these sections, you set the time that you want that section to start. So my coaches meeting went until 9 a.m. So usually I like to give 10 minutes for the coaches to get back to their teams and then come back to be able to start their event. So how many referees are needed for your set of 3 full in this case? So you'll need 6. You need 1 referee for each actual table, and then your head referee is like the separate role of head referee. They're just kind of there to monitor and make sure that everybody or answer all the hard questions and stuff like that. But yeah, each table that you add needs a single. So each full table needs 2 referees. If I explain that well. Let's see. But yeah, so you can set when it starts, and then what I have found success with, again, like I was saying before, with the practice match, you'll have a lot of rookie teams there that are learning it. You'll have new volunteers there that are learning how this event works. I like having at least a 10-minute gap or so between the end of my practice round and the start of the official. Because if you start, even though we have plenty of extra time in here, no, I didn't do it here. For just a 2 table match, I'll make a longer gap during practice and then still have a gap here. But it's just to allow extra time, because you want your event is driven by the schedule. And when you go off that piece of paper that you give the teams, it makes your day more challenging. So by building this gap into here, I give myself some margin to make sure that we can start the official rounds at 10:22, even if we kind of got behind. If we started the official rounds right when the practice ended, I mean, you could do that, but then your entire day is going to shift. And as your day shifts, you run into trouble with teams being in judging and then not being able to do their scheduled match. which is no problem. I mean, matches are easy to make up, but if you can stick to your timed out schedule, everybody is much happier. So that's why I put that in there.
And it gives your referees an opportunity to run to the restroom or grab a
Yeah.
donut, right?
Yeah.
Your judges have a little bit of room in that 15 minutes to have in between teams if they want to, you can just go and run. But the referees, I find that's very useful what you just did there.
Yeah.
They can breathe.
And then that leads to a good point too, with the lunch. Generally how it works out is, let's see, this, I'm gonna grab this, and paste this. Yeah. This is something that I add just to help me keep track of it more visually. Generally you do a round and sometimes split round 2 with lunch and then round 3 at the end. You could put, like I was saying earlier, there's these start end breaks in each of these sections. You could add a break here between round 1 and round 2 as well, or really anywhere. If I add a break, I like to do it in between the rounds just to make it easy to keep track of things. But otherwise, I mean, your lunch break is only what, 2 hours, no, hour and a half. So sometimes I try to schedule the lunch so that the robot matches are half and half. But in this case, I think I felt that 11:25 might have been too early to have a lunch, or then the afternoon would have been too long. So I just plopped it in at 12:15. And that was driven by this 30 minutes and then the 15 minutes after, to give a even break. Oops. Let's see. Sorry, I see some more questions. Do you factor in an opening ceremony just before the official match? So you can add an opening ceremony. I don't know if there's any hard fast rule for or against. In general, I haven't done opening ceremonies at my qualifiers just to give more time for the actual event. But if you add that, then you just kind of push everything down before all the judging.
It's optional per the rules. It's optional, so it's whatever you want to do that fits in your schedule. I've even been at events where the opening ceremonies are during lunch.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I probably knew that at one
Sounds good.
time and then ran with it. He just kept doing it. Before all the judgments.
Yeah, I like the opening ceremony scheduled in the state championship usually, with the first game, and they, that, indicates the start of the official game. That looks like, really cool. So
Yeah.
I was hoping that we can squeeze in those, even though if it's like just 10 or 15 minutes, right? So give them some ceremony to kick
Yeah,
off the event. Yeah.
yeah. I mean that's all that's out. It's just it pushes your schedule down farther, and that's like this one, for example, we're ending about 2:10-ish, and that's when the judge deliberation could start. But I mean, I would say if you can get your schedule to end before 5 p.m., that would be great. but if you're having struggle getting it all fit in, that would be like one of the places I would either make a slightly shorter lunch, but you still want a good amount of time for your volunteers to kind of relax, re-energize, get their food. So opening ceremony would be like that target of what I would cut. But yeah, if you can fit that in there, go for it. I agree. It's a nice way to start. I've just found run right into it and get going. I mean, you could probably have your teams, don't give them as much time to arrive. So that's about it for the actual building of the schedule. I could go to how I produce the schedule, how we can use these other tabs to produce the schedule that you will provide to your team. But I guess first, does anybody have questions about the mechanics of how this works? Yes, let's see. But if I make this 15 minutes. So it failed. But if I click retry, it just ain't gonna work. So you just iterate, back it off. Still doesn't work. Well, pretend we didn't know that the 8 works. If we go to 1, okay, it looks like that's working. And it reminded me, there's this schedule by team number. It shows the minimum. So this team, their minimum time in between one of their events is 22 minutes. Somebody has 41, but somebody else has 2. So again, if we play with that to back to 8, it should force it to balance those out a little bit more. And now the minimum is 8. And the others, there's 34, but there's not too much that we can really like force this to be. But having a 2-minute time between is not a good idea. So do double check this column and see that you have like larger values, as large as you can get them. But if I recall, I think even 9 wouldn't work with how this layout works. Yeah.
Can you scroll down to how you did your judging? So you said 6 judging rooms. And then, because it's only one judging session now, what do you do with judging? You just,
Oh, so this tool was set up originally when we used to have the separate sessions for robot, project, and core values. I think it's actually been set up for a 4th session that you could use for like scheduled pictures or something. Just set it to 1 and then fill out the session number 1 and ignore the sessions number 2 through 4.
okay.
Yeah.
Does everyone have access to this file? Does everyone know who their head ref and judge advisor is? Okay.
Okay. The other tabs across the bottom are basically the data view of this nice visual view. So here's your official round schedule and your practice round schedule. So it gives the start and end, and then the teams and what table they is running. Like I said, if you're running like two tables at once, these two numbers would be up here with the other. And then similarly gives a similar layout for your judging. And then a layout for your teams. So this is just by team number and then what their practice, official, and judging are. So what I like to do is I'll basically copy this and make a new Excel workbook. I'll copy this information onto a tab, and then kind of like down here in this space, I'll copy my judging schedule. Clean up the sizing a little bit so that it generally it'll fit on just like a single sheet of paper for an event. And that's what I'll have for my referees, cuers, judges, any other event personnel, so that they know where the teams should be at any time. And it's all just one sheet, and I can just print off however many volunteers I have, do that quantity, instead of having to have like multiple pieces of paper. Schedule by team number. You could copy this and print off this and just print off 30 copies and give every team the same. I see a raised hand. Coach Lee.
That's me again.
Yeah.
Hi, Rick. You mentioned this spreadsheet that works for 20 team or above. What if you have less than 20 teams?
Oh yeah, no, this is okay. So if you set this to 20, you should be able to do this down to 2. Let's put this 2 extra minutes. Just 1. 1 divided by 5 is 4. And if we run it again, oops. Drop this back down to 1 minute. And now we have your new schedule for just 20 teams. And I dropped off. So now by running just 2 tables, you still end, well, actually we end earlier because you don't need to get through as many teams. But by using less rooms and less tables, you reduced your volunteer count. So you need 2 fewer referees and 4 fewer judges. And then the number with the iteration, the time between, we could probably play with gaps and get it to work better. Let's see. Yeah. For example, if we go here, we've got, again, somebody with a 2-minute gap. It's like a lot of 4s and 5s, with 2 with 2s. So I bet if I set this to 6, it would probably work. Does that, No, I probably did that really fast, but did that help answer your question?
Oh, because I saw this note said the estimate is the minimum of. Oh,
Um,
so you change it to 20 and it this. Oh, that's why.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that number changes with your number. Okay, got you. I thought it's
Oh,
always 24 and above that's needed.
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean you can go down to
10 as well. Oh, okay.
10. You just put in whatever you need. Since it's kind of even numbers, like you could do a 19 team and then it'll have like a 0 in here for one of
Mhm,
these because you don't have enough teams to fill up an even number of slots.
mhm.
Um, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Oh, it also has the official rounds and practice rounds schedule for your MC. This one is nice because I mean it's not obvious here because I just call them team 1, 2, 3, 4. Um, whereas those other match schedules are always so they're smaller, it just gives you the team number. Um, the match schedule for the MC provides their actual team name right on the sheet so that as they're announcing, they got it listed out. They don't have to look at another table. Um,
that's actually one of my tips that I learned the hard way was to print the team number and the team name on a piece of paper and give it to everybody because
yeah,
of this.
that, that actually reminds me. Let me find. That's good. Looking for an example from last year. Um, so like I was explaining, so this is the sheet that I print out or produce for the various volunteers at the event. So it's got the official round schedule, the practice round, the judging, and then I shrink down and put the um, team number and team name onto here. I don't remember if I did. I may have done for state. Sometimes depending on your layout, maybe you need to have your teams, maybe you don't have one large space for your team pits, and you have to kind of split them up into classrooms or two other areas. I would recommend putting your pit, like pit A, pit B, as a column here as well.
Mm,
That way it's easy to find your if you have somebody managing your pits or your queuers also have a like a layout of the pits available for them so that it's easier to find them, but it's all about trying to be easily to find your teams. Um, because like I said, timing is everything for a nice, smooth, easy day for everybody involved. Um, any other questions? And then should I show the macro Word template where I produce a single sheet for a team schedule? Or is that going to confuse or complicate it? Does
my
ever,
my guess is you got people on this call who would be more than happy to give that a try.
okay.
That's your own customized thing, right?
Yeah, that's something that I started doing a couple years ago just to provide them.
Well, show it to us, and then if anybody sees it and they want to
I
dive
just
in.
I guess first for the main portion of the schedule building, does anybody else have questions?
Once you start playing with it, it you learn it very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I put in like I said, like you guys saw, when it doesn't work, it just says that failed message, but doesn't really tell you why. So I did have in the training, depending how many teams you have, and how you have it set up. If all your teams are in judging, for example, maybe we had a 10-team tournament, and for whatever reason we decided to have 6 judging sessions. You could get your judging done really fast. But if you go with 3 tables, the tool will have, I don't know how exactly it works, but I'm assuming it probably starts with judging first and then goes to matches, because I'm trying to build one, and that's kind of how I've got it figured out. It'll put all your teams in judging rooms, and then it's going to come and be like, I need to populate my practice rounds. I'm starting at 9-10, but I don't have any teams to fit into these spots. So it won't converge at an answer. Or maybe if you did have 2, but you had them really close together, if all your rounds would end within that 30-minute gap or that 30-minute time, it won't be able to run. So in those cases, expand those gaps, time between matches, so you have like really large things, get it to run, see what's going on, and then you can go and play with those individual times and hopefully get to a schedule that works. But yeah, that's probably one of the cases where it's not working. It's because times are too close to each other. All right, so
And I would say, I mean, this is just my experience. Play with it ahead of time. Just make yourself
oh, yeah.
a test. You know, if you're a 16-team event, put in just like Rick did,
Yeah.
right? Team 1, team 2, team 3. But generating the real schedule, me personally, I learned the hard way. The Thursday before was the soonest I would do it. They would have the general. They knew when to show up. They knew what to bring. They knew when the coaches meeting was, opening ceremonies and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But when their matches are, here's why. People are adding, right? Joining your event and more likely than not is dropping out of your event at the last minute, and it screws up your whole schedule. And just like, yeah.
And actually, glad you brought that up. So the nice thing about this is, if you look at your formula bar, these are all, well, the names and numbers are tied back to the team info. So if I change this to something else, and we go back to team, that automatically pops up. So you can have your schedule and times all figured out, and then make updates to your team names and numbers up to the last moment, without any problem.
Yeah.
And that's how I've even just kind of reused the same schedule next year, because I know it works. All I have to do is change this tab and I'm good to go. All right, so let's get back to making a schedule. It's custom for each team. So basically go to the schedule by team number tab, copy that data, and then paste it into another workbook. I mean, I like you could probably just use this one, but I like having a separate one that's not a macro workbook. These you can format that as time. And then you've got same information all here. Let's save this. Put it in. So this is all our main data. And then if we open up a Word document, do a new blank. And then if you go to your mailings tab and do start mail merge, normal Word document. Select recipients, use an existing list. Navigate to where you put that file. Select that sheet. So what that did is now made a connection to the data that you have there, if you haven't done mail merges before. Oops. Let's not do that. What I forgot was the first row in here. You need to have your column names, and by default it has official practice rounds judging. So usually I do go and do official. Guard. But basically rename these so that you have them each named uniquely. So this is match 1. Yeah, let's do that. Match 1 number. Match 1. Start. Okay. So now we have unique column identifiers across the first row. And if we go back, mail merge, existing list. Well, when you do the insert merge field dropdown, you'll get that column name. So you can build this however you like. Usually I have the tournament name, so it's not. Next one. Okay, this is what I want to do. Go to fill out 13 name, 13 number, the match number, start time, and the table. And then what this does is if you're and then you can finish, fill out your match 2, 3, your judging. I'll put in a like the general the table of the general schedule. So opening ceremonies. And pull the dirty down. And then if you preview results, it'll do each row will show up. And basically when you do, you can save this. And when you're done, happy with it, usually I'll add the FLL logo, the season logo, stuff like that. You don't have to make it however you like. You do edit individual documents, all records. It'll make a new Microsoft Word file. And each page is now got the unique information. So you can just print out this one file and you got your 20 team information sheets. I like kind of doing this, that way they can get a schedule for the day. Another unique thing that you could do is, one thing that I like is providing a recommended queuing time. So you can add extra columns and add a time that's like 5 minutes back. I'll add for the first teams, you can do if the match number is 1, 2, or like 1 or 2, and you're doing an opening ceremony, I'll put on there, if your match is 1 or 2, you need to be up when the opening ceremony call is made. You'll need to be up at the tables with your robot ready, because you are going right after opening ceremonies. And you can put that message in, you can automate it, put that message in here, and then that'll become that'll be a new column here. And you just put it in there like any one of these other ones. But if you only have that for like those first 4 teams, only those first teams will get that specific message. I usually advise my like PID admins to go around and talk to those teams, like person to like physically before opening ceremonies, but it's nice to have it on a piece of paper so that if something happens and you don't get to do that, they at least have that information there. But yeah.
Let me ask this, because we're at the hour, we're even a
Oh.
little bit Is
Yeah.
anyone interested in this? This is really cool stuff. I would do all this stuff by hand. I cut and paste and make my like just oh my gosh.
For 10-team tournament, you could do that, but yeah, when it's a lot. And then I actually will make this PDF, split it out into, if you have Pro, Acrobat like Pro, you can split the PDFs out into separate documents. And then I'll send those individually to each team.
So when do you send out this information? When do they know their first match is at 11:02?
This I will send out at usually Thursday night
Okay.
before.
Same. Ditto
Um,
for me. Yep.
because by Friday I'm printing stuff out anyway. Good point about that. Also on the individual match, I'll put like a footer or something down below saying maybe Rev 1 or the date that you made it,
Okay.
just in case should Elaine come to you Friday morning before you printed other stuff out and go, hey, I need to get like one more team into your place. And if you redo a schedule, I mean,
Yeah.
you can because you know what you're doing now. You're the expert. Um, you can print it out and then you'll know tournament day. Here's your new schedule. Throw
Yeah.
away your other one, and you'll know that everything's Rev 2 is the real one.
Okay.
Um, but yeah,
So we'll end here. I think they've got fantastic information to go forward. Do you guys want a what would you call it, Rick? A communication
I could put PowerPoint slides together for like this
okay.
specific process. That might be
Okay.
helpful.
So it's November 7th. We're 1 month ahead of the first qualifier.
Yeah.
So because I'm already getting questions, and here's the reason why, you guys, a lot of them are schools and they need to send permission slips to parents and things like that. And
Mhm.
so I'm getting a lot of questions about when does my qualifier start? I don't know. That's
Yeah.
going to be up to you guys. So if you can start communicating with your teams, knowing that we're going to be adding teams over the next month. Francisco's been sending you guys some information already, but to just start introducing yourself and just giving them a place to go with if they have immediate questions, that's hugely helpful for us.
Yeah.
Okay? Here's what we'll do. I'll end the recording. If anybody's got questions, that you're like, I'm just really struggling. Rick is, you can tell he's that guy, right? So we can just set up a quick evening-ish 15-20 minute call, and he'll walk us through whatever the answer to your question is. I can record it and make it available to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Feel free to email me.